watched this tutorial to learn how to sew your hexagon quilt blocks together. Even beginners like me learned how to do it from this video.
Let's have a look at putting our hexagons together for our hexi quilt. Lay your quilt out and then create rows, and we're going to join our rows together so we've got long rows to then join the interlocking. I'm just going to show you how to join the one of the sections. Find our points, put a pin through, point on point. Now the embroidery block gives you those points, so use those. Those are where we're going to be sewing to. We're not sewing past them, and we're not sewing short of them. Match your center, seam on seam, and we're going to be stitching to the net, so not sewing into the seam allowance. Let's just sew on the left hand side of those stitches, or in between your two rows. I like to sew quite close to the right hand side. Make sure that you finish or back tack to that point, and then we're going to sew onto that point. Oh, almost got my pin. Just check our corners that we're safe. So we're stopping at that point and starting at that point. Let's just lightly press our seams open. Not a heavy press, but we need those seam allowances to sit down so we can actually see where our points are when we come to interlock our hexagons. So let's imagine we've got two long strips and we're going to be interlocking them. So we're going to be sewing section to section to section to section to section. Let's turn around there to make a better pattern. That's better. So these sections are all going to be sewn separately. Let's start with our first one. When I do a hexi quilt, I'll lay the quilt out and I'll divide it into 4 sections, so a left and right top and a left and right bottom, and then work on a section at a time, and then just do my last lines to join my 4 sections together. It's just easier for handling. We're doing exactly the same as we did before. We're putting a pin through the corner point and finding the matching corner point. Now this one's been stitched, so it's just into the stitching. Check on the back to make sure that we're into that point. We are. I pin along the seam. I don't pin out into the block, I pin along the seam. You can see my pins are on angles. And we will just have a look to see that sitting on top of each other there, so we don't see it when we've actually turned the work through. Right, so we're going to be sewing to the net. Now this has got a seam allowance which is open. Push that down. Push that out of the way. We don't want to catch it when we're stitching. I've only made a couple of hexagon quilts in my stitching time there, but I have done a lot of notch collars on tailored jackets, and it's exactly the same principle. Right, sink that needle, back tack, trim our threads, and we'll see that that is a nice corner there, it's nice and tight. And that's the first part of our Y intersection. Right, now next seam, so we've got to twist our quilt. And now we haven't got an open end, we've got 2 lots of seam allowances to deal with. So it's going to be the same principle. We're going to put a pin in the corner points. One that's been stitched already will mean that it should find its place automatically. And it has. Find that corner one. When you get your tie off, it's hard to see that point. Let's just check now. I'm just slightly off, so let's move it over. That's in position. Place that pin down against the edge of our seam. Lift your work up and push the seam allowances away. Some people actually don't press, when you're doing a row, some people don't press the seam allowance open until they've actually done this section. And then they do all the pressing at once, but I like to have one seam pressed. Now with the grains on our hexi blocks, you might find that you'll have a straight of grain on one line sewing to a bias grain on the other. If that does happen, I would suggest that we perhaps put the bias grain towards the feed dog and have the straight grain on top, but it would mean turning your quilt over. I've got a stitch caught there. Now that intersection is fine. I can just see a little bit of a stitch grin, which is fine. I'm using quite a light thread. And would be opening those up, and you actually create a pinwheel type effect with the folds there. I don't trim anything out of those intersections. I fold them like origami. Let's do our next one. I generally do pin the free one first. I try to pin that free one first. I think it actually is more helpful. I can feel that seam allowance is sitting back. But that one isn't. But there's our first Y point. I'm going to clip that little stitch because it's annoying me. You won't get that happening because you've got embroidery to hold that down. But there's our intersections, nice and tight. And then we just basically carry on doing section to section. Now I'm one stitch short there. So I'm just going to go back in and just put one more stitch in. I'm just one stitch short. There we are, that's tight. Next one, so we again put a pin in at the free end, corner on corner. I like machining hexies together. That I really enjoy the way they look when they're finished. I don't know if I'd have the patience to do a hand hexie quilt. I don't think I've got enough lifetime to do one. Alison's been working on a beautiful one, and her hexies are quite small, and it is taking shape, but she has been working on it a long time. All hand work. back to our point. And the last one for this little section. If you didn't want to machine stitch these there because of the fiddling with it, now there's no reason why you couldn't actually back stitch them, hand stitch them together in the same principle. A project which is quite mobile. I would sew my strips first, my lengths first, but then there's no reason why you couldn't do that. It's a case of getting to know your machine, making your machine do what you want it to do, not what it wants to do. Right, so we open our seams out now. So they get opened out and we create a folded corner, what I'll call a pinwheel corner, because they're all going in an opposite continuous direction. Excuse my hands. So I iron the seam up first. And it's really hot. And fiddly. Okay, so that's what I mean about the folds. If you fold them so as like a pinwheel, give it a little section, a press. So you fold them like a pinwheel. And I don't trim anything out.
Awesome, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.